Hello.
Hi, Bettina.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Not hearing the chair. I see him. Anyone else hearing the?
I only hear you two.
Okay.
Sorry, say something?
How about now?
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Slater, you can hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, Martina?
I can hear you.
Great.
Yeah.
Looks like we're sitting in a boardroom here.
I know, it looks like we're in one of those old movies where it's mom and pop having dinner at the 25-foot long dining table,
Yeah.
but no one's serving a soup or anything.
I can start calling you.
For showtime, if you're ready. Yeah, that's a very bright yellow wall.
Yeah, are we ready?
Yeah.
Is it your favorite school bus yellow or some variation on a theme?
We're okay?
I think it might be sunflower yellow. My
There
wife's.
you go. Yep.
Okay,
looks
we're
like
ready to go.
Oh,
Welcome to the May 27, 2021 meeting of the Cambridge Board of Zoning Appeal. My name is Brendan Sullivan. I am the acting chair for tonight's meeting, and accompanying me on the stage is Jim Monteverdi. This meeting is being held remotely due to statewide emergency orders limiting the size of public gatherings in response to COVID-19 and in accordance with Governor Charles Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, temporarily amending certain requirements of the open meeting law, as well as the City of Cambridge temporary emergency restrictions on city public meetings, city events, and city permitting events due to COVID-19, dated May 27, 2020. This meeting is being video and audio recorded and is broadcast on cable television channel 22 within Cambridge. There will also be a transcript of the proceedings. All board members, applicants, and members of the public will please state their name before speaking. All votes will be taken by roll call. Members of the public will be kept on mute until it is time for public comment. I will give instructions for public comment at that time, and you will also find instructions on the city's webpage for remote BZA meetings. You will have up to 3 minutes to speak. I'll start by asking staff to take board members' attendance and verifying that all members are audible.
Slater, Alexander, or Slater, sorry, Anderson.
Yes, I am here. I'm getting a little bit of a high pitched noise. I don't know if anyone else is getting that. But
A little bit of a feedback or something.
yeah, there's a feedback. I don't know who manages that, but maybe it's just me. I'm here. Thank you.
Jason,
Jason Marshall present. I don't hear the high pitched noise, but maybe your hearing is better than mine, Slater.
It's gone away now. We'll see. Comes back.
okay, Martina,
I'm here.
Okay.
And Jim.
Oh, well, you.
Yeah,
Hey,
Jim is
Jim
audible.
Monteverdi, I'm present.
Yeah, okay, and Brendan Sullivan.
Yes.
First case I'm going to call tonight is case number 103-314, 2615 Massachusetts Avenue. Mr. Schomer.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair.
Proceed.
Thank you very much. I seem to have audio only, but I'm available for my video if the board would like. I also have some documents that I could put up on the screen that we could follow along with the presentation if it please the board.
Sure.
Well, no, we're doing.
The staff has to do the video, any documents. I'm not sure if you can transmit from your place to here now. Unfortunately, you can probably refer to documents that we may have in the file. Mr. Schomer, just for clarification, on your application, and I know there was a brief discussion in the last meeting regarding request for a variance and a special permit. It has been determined that it is a variance that you are going to require. You agree with that?
Well, I would not fully agree with that, Mr. Chair. We believe that this is permittable under Chapter 48, Section 6, but we did request in the alternative the variance that the Inspectional Services Department felt was necessary for this. So I would leave that up to the board.
Yes, I had a very brief conversation with the commissioner as to his feel and ruling on it, and he said they would require a variance. And so I would then defer to that. If you disagree with that, you can also take an appeal to his decision. But in view of what he told me that the required relief was a variance, then I will rely on his presentation to me.
Understood.
Okay, so we'll proceed on the variance standard.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. So your presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. What you see in front of you on the screen here, this is an image of the site. 2615 Mass Ave is the address. This is the vantage point of the site from Mass Ave, and you see on screen left there some sitting traffic. That's Alewife Brook Parkway, and the site itself is it's used for a gas station. As you can see, there are 4 filling stations with pumps on each side of those islands. And this view may look somewhat anachronistic because these fuel pumps obviously do not have canopies. And that's somewhat atypical for gas stations in this day and age, primarily because of the computerized equipment that modern fuel pump equipment utilizes. And so the pump islands themselves are completely uncovered. There's some fire suppression equipment on the pumps themselves. You can see the red tanks there. Those are for fire suppression. And there are lights mounted onto these islands, but they're unshielded lights. So it sends light more or less in every direction throughout the site. So what we've proposed, and if whoever is controlling the slideshow could go on to the next slide. We have proposed to construct canopies over these fuel islands, and there would be 2 canopies in total, one covering the cluster of fuel pumps along Mass Ave and the other along Alewife Brook Parkway. The canopies themselves, one of them is proposed to be 24 feet in width by 44 feet in length. The other one is slightly smaller than that at 24 by 42. And both of the canopies are proposed to be 15 feet in height. And the reason why we chose that height, board members, was because we wanted to permit this as an accessory structure, and the requirement under the zoning ordinance for accessory structures is not taller than 15 feet above grade. And so that's what we've proposed here. Lot lines, and in fact meets all setback requirements for primary and accessory structures, and is also more than 5 feet away from the principal building on the property. So there's no dimensional relief that's required for these canopies. If you could go on to the next slide, please. This is a detail sheet that shows the footings of the canopies. I won't dwell on that one. The next slide, please. This is more of the same detail sheets. If we could go, if you have the site plan, that's it there. So this is a survey plan of the site, and the areas that you see shaded in dark gray, that's the extent of the canopies that they would be covering over the site. You'll see that dashed line around the property. Those are the setback lines. So it shows that both of the canopies meet all required setbacks. And if we could go on to a few more slides later, we did recently submit renderings and a photometric study of the proposed canopies. If it's possible, I would be happy to share my screen if that's something that can be permitted for me to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it can. Can we download the photo simulations?
Mr. Chair, it does appear that I am able to do this. I'll give it a shot here. Are you able to see that, members?
Yep.
Okay, so this is that view of the site that we saw previously. This is another view of the same site from Alewife Brook Parkway. This is the zoom out here. This is the site plan that we were just looking at a moment ago. So to move on to the photometric study, this was the study that was commissioned that measures the light impact of the canopies, and you see these outlines in blue here. These are the canopies, and the green squares represent the light fixtures that would be affixed to these structures on the underside of the canopies. And you see a series of numbers, a grid around the site. These represent the light impact around the site and on neighboring properties. And that's measured in foot candles, which is a measurement of light based on the light of one candle at a distance of 1 foot. So if you can see here around the edges, the light impact beyond the property line is 0 along all of the residential sides of this property. There's no light impact whatsoever. There's a slight impact here, but this is Alewife Brook Parkway, so there are, as you know, a number of street lights here, and the same is true here for Mass Ave. A slight light impact, but nothing significant. The most important thing from our perspective is the residential property here, which is the closest. There's an apartment building here. There's a wood fence along the property, and that shields the light impact and provides 0 light impact to that property. If we move on to this is a heat map of that light impact. It shows the way that the light is cast around the site. You see here the blue measures effectively 0 light impact, and so it's really limited right here to the areas right around the canopy and right under the canopy, and that's intentional because we wanted to be sensitive to the nearby residential neighbors. This is the same thing from a 3-dimensional perspective, and then this is how it would look at night. The same heat map, more or less, and the same impact here. And then this is that 3D image of that. And you can see the fence here along the property line here that shields the light from entering the neighboring properties. The next slides that we have, these are 3D models of what the canopies would look like. We're proposing them to be, as you can see here, these are what's known as slimline canopies. These are 15 feet in height from the grade here to the top of the structure here. And this fascia board here, this is only 18 inches in height, and that was also selected to be sensitive to the nearby neighbors because we don't want to have a large visual impact to the property that's right here, and this is that apartment building here. So that 15-inch height sits slightly above the first story level. So this is the view of the site at night with a light impact. Moving on to another view of the site from Mass Ave, same view. This is a 3D from above, showing that there's nothing mounted on the top here, and we're not proposing any signage on these canopies. They're just simple fascia. And then here's how it would look during the day. It looks like the same cars have been parked there overnight, so I'm sure we should be calling the local police department to have them towed, but never mind. And that's the extent of our presentation, board members. Just to let the members know, we did provide these images to the local North Cambridge Stabilization Committee, which is a neighborhood group, and requested their feedback on these. We have not heard back from them. We have met with them previously to try to earn their support for this project. I understand that at least one of the neighbors has submitted a letter with some concerns about this. But we have reached out to them, and we've done our best, we think, to try to satisfy their concerns. And we believe that this project would be a welcome addition to the neighborhood, because it would shield light impacts from those neighbors. It would provide added safety in the form of better fire suppression for these fuel islands, and we think it would have a minimal visual impact to the neighbors.
Mr. Shulman, the hours of operation are from 6 a.m. to 12 midnight. Can you confirm that?
That, Mr. Chair, I would have to defer to my client on that one. His name is Mark Lakis, and I do see that he is on the line. I'm not sure if he's able to unmute himself.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Jesse. How are you?
Go ahead, Mark.
Sure. The hours of operation before COVID, it was 6 a.m. to midnight. During COVID, it's 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay, so after the COVID emergency has been lifted, you will go back to the midnight closing, you think, or?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess where I'm going is at midnight, when they close the station and shut off the lights in the station house, if you will, what happens to the canopy lights? Will they also be dimmed?
Yes, they will all be turned off. They will all be turned off from the control inside where the cashier stays.
Okay.
And we will take care of it. So after midnight, there will be no light exposure or anything to bother our residential neighbors.
Okay. That's one, I guess, plus as far as the neighbors are concerned. The other thought that I have, and again, I shouldn't even really get into it, I don't have the expertise at it, is that there probably should be some lighting as far and to identify the pumps, because at night that your gas station can be a cut through. And I would want to make sure that those pumps and everything are visible and also protected. I'm sure you do also. So I'm not going to require it, but I think that dimming the lights is a plus. Shutting them off, if that would ameliorate the neighbors, then I guess that would be okay also. So, but some lighting there to identify the gas station or the pumps may not be a bad idea, but you can think about that. Any questions by members of the board? Jim?
Are the lights on any dimming system at all, or dimmable?
Not at this point. All this equipment is now there are lights on inside the repair shop and the station. Now there's lights inside, and if we keep the power onto the pumps but put on an all stop, the pumps will have the lights on, so they'll be able to see the pumps from the screens, the digital screens and everything. So this is just me brainstorming right now. We're thinking about it, but as of now, I mean, all the equipment right now is about 30 years old. So none of those at this point have that.
Right, but new equipment, the new lights and the new canopies, are they dimmable?
Jesse, can I defer that question to you? I'm not sure everything on the equipment.
I believe they are. That I'm not 100% certain. I know that the canopy light fixtures do allow different is, and
Yep.
I believe we would be going for the dimmable. I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to ask that of the manufacturer.
Thank you.
Slater, any questions?
No questions.
Martina, any questions?
No questions.
Jason?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Council signage on top of the canopies, is that correct?
That's our intent, Mr. Marshall.
Yeah. And would you seek to do that in the future? It sounds like you would not, given
Do you mean something?
on top of the canopy.
No, I don't believe that there is any intent to do that at this time. We're really just primarily trying to get the canopies themselves, primarily for the weather protection, because those pumps, the equipment, it really does need it. And we are the operators are planning on upgrading that equipment in the near future. In order to do that, we need the canopies. So no, the answer is no. A long-winded no. We're not looking to put up any
All right.
signage.
Thank you for the response. And then just finally, I know you had referenced 40A Section 6. I think I would tend to agree that that's the starting point of the conversation. I just want to make sure I understand your position. Is it that really the only issue before us is the question of use? Is that your position, whether or not the canopies would constitute a change in use? Is that your primary position?
Yes, Mr. Marshall, that was the way we initially presented this application to the board, and at that point, the commissioner of the building department raised an issue about whether a variance was needed. I respectfully disagree with the commissioner. I think Section 6 does permit what we're proposing to do, which is to change a non-conforming use. The gas station has been there since 1921 in one form or another, so it long predates the zoning bylaw. And in our position, the addition of these canopies does not change the use. It would not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. But with all that having been said, we recognize that the commissioner, his view is that a variance is more appropriate in this case, and as the chair mentioned, he will defer to the commissioner, and so will we.
To further that conversation, Jason,
No further
are you
questions.
familiar with the Powers case at all?
I am. That's why I was trying to tease
Yeah.
out the conversation. Yes.
Yeah. For the other members of the board, let me just bring that out. In the case of Powers versus the building inspector of Barnstable, the SJC, Supreme Judicial Court, articulated a three-pronged test for determining whether a proposed development relating to a pre-existing non-conforming use would rise to the level of a change, extension, or alteration of such use. The three prongs are whether the use reflects the nature and purpose of the use prevailing when the zoning bylaw took effect. 2, whether there is a difference in the quality or character, as well as the degree of use. Whether the current use is different in kind in its effect on the neighborhood. And Mr. Sigenheim, the commissioner, feels that it is somewhat of a change in non-conforming use as a gas station. And he's basically said that you're adding a structure to a non-conforming use because what was a business zone is now residence. And he felt that the proper vehicle was a variance. This can be decided, you can go back and forth, I think, on this. And so I defer basically to his ruling that it should be a variance. But that's the three-prong test. So, Jason, any other comments, questions?
I think you know, Council, I'd appreciate any response you might want to provide to that. I'm trying to sort of square my head around the powers test and under what posture this application is before the board, whether or not we would provide a ruling on 48 section 6, or whether you're simply here to seek a variance at this point.
So, Mr. Marshall, what I would say is the powers test is what is issue in that case, as I understand it, is a question of whether zoning relief of any kind is needed in order to do something involving a pre-existing non-conforming use or structure. And if the three tests that were recited regarding nature and purpose, quality and character, and kind, if those are all satisfied, if it's determined that the proposal does not constitute a change in the nature or change in the quality or change in kind, then what powers holds is that no zoning relief of any kind is needed, and you can pull a building permit for the proposal. Any of those factors, if it sounds like the commissioner has determined, at that point you have to go to the zoning board for a section 6 finding, which is what we have sought in this case. And the finding that would be requested in that instance is a finding that the proposal would be not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing development of the site. And we believe that it is less detrimental to the neighborhood because of the increased safety, as I mentioned before, and the light shielding, which is not available to the nearby residents. If there is a proposal that would violate zoning, effectively, that's when you come into the variance standard, which is, I'm sure, very well familiar to the board members regarding hardship and things of that nature. So we believe that the proposal meets both standards. We applied under the section 6 finding standard because frankly, I prefer, if I can avoid requesting variances from zoning bylaws, that's how I prefer to do my permitting, because I think that this is something that qualifies for a section 6 finding, but as before, we'll defer to however the board feels about that. If they want to defer to the commissioner and vote on a variance standard, that's fine with us. We believe it meets that.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chair, as well.
Okay. With that being said, let me open it to public comment. Any member of the public who wish to speak should now click the button that says participants, and then click the button that says raise hand. If you are calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. You will be given up to 3 minutes to make your comments at the 2.5 minute point, staff will notify you of 30 seconds left in your presentation. With that said, I will open it now to public comment.
Richard Cadot.
Thank you. My name is Rich Cadot, and I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I live in this building next door, directly adjacent to the gas station, and I am the managing trustee who represents all the owners and residents of this building. I'd like to state right off the bat that no one has reached out to us concerning the questions or opinions we may have on the proposed canopies. That Mr. Schumer has, I think that's his name, Schumer has reached out to the stabilization committee, but not to us. It's obvious that we are opposed to this canopy or these canopies for basically because it's the albatross in the room. I find it difficult to believe that there will be no light intrusion from these canopies. I believe that the renditions are not as accurate as they should be. I also understand that there'll be nothing on the canopies. I find it hard to believe that there will not be a tank farm above with all the fire suppression equipment. We all know there has to be fire suppression equipment, and I doubt that they're going to be hidden within the structure of the canopy. I asked a question several months ago where they stated that this equipment required canopies because of the electronics. There has been electronics in those fuel dispensers for quite some time, and they appear to be working correctly. These units are sealed from the weather. So the statement of them being required totally unsubstantiated. I'm also concerned about the viability of these canopies standing. I stated in my letter that, in my opinion, the space in and around Pump Islands number 1 and Pump Islands number 3 is too tight for trucks. They're constantly being, these units are constantly being hit by these weekend warriors who drive these U-Haul and Ryder trucks. As we can see on Pump Island number 1, which I'm wondering, is it functional? The fire suppression has been damaged by a truck, and it's all
30 seconds.
okay. Sorry, I'll make this quick. I just do not believe that this is a good fit for the area, and I don't believe that the residents and owners of this building should have a lesser quality of life than anywhere else in the city. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Cadot. The next speaker.
Maria Maddaloni.
Thank you. My name is Maria Maddaloni. I am a 16-year owner and resident of Parkway Condos. My unit faces the mobile station from 2 different sides of my unit. I will be, along with a number of my neighbors, living with the view of these canopies. Presently, the view I have is straight across to the Alewife Greenway, which is certainly a pleasant view. And that will be diminished substantially. And I think a large concern I have after watching Mr. Schomer's presentation concerns the light trespassing, where he focused on basically the lighting that was right on the property. And then he did point out that there would be more lighting that is reflected onto Alewife Parkway, which I face. So it's not about what's on the actual property of the gas station. I can see beyond that. And so I will be looking at that lighting. And as it is, although the gas station's hours are presently 6 to 10, the lights are routinely on at 5:30 in the morning. I have light blocking curtains, and it still seeps in, and their trash gets removed at 5:30 in the morning, which has woken me up a few times. The fence that Mr. Schomer talked about, which separates our building from the mobile station, really only applies to the first floor of this building. There are 3 floors of residences in this building. The second and third floor are still will have a view. The fence is immaterial in respect to that. So the lighting going into different directions needs to be considered. And lastly, I just want to point out that I have concerns about the stewardship of the property. The renderings have really nice landscaping shown there. There's presently not landscaping of that caliber there. I am sitting in another room of my condo. I can see the fence in the back of the property, which has been falling down for a while. There's not been, there's not been good maintenance of this property. And we used to have nicer landscaping there, and then it was taken out. And I'm concerned, just like my neighbor Rich Cadot said, that a lot of this is just for show, and what we're going to actually see is not going to be favorable to our building. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Next speaker.
I don't see other hands raised. Oh, here we go. Mike Brandon.
Mr. Brandon?
Good evening. Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm Michael Brandon, 27 Seven Pines Avenue. I'm the clerk for the North Cambridge Stabilization Committee. I'm sorry we didn't have a chance to submit anything in writing, but I'm here to let you know that the Stabilization Committee does not support this proposal. And we hope that you will not make a favorable finding. You've heard from the immediate neighbors, some of them, and they had attended a meeting that we did have with Mr. Schomer, where we discussed the proposal. And our members decided to support the abutters because of their concerns. It appears that this proposal would be substantially more detrimental under Section 6 than the current situation in terms of blocking views of the neighbors, potentially increasing traffic if there's weather protection. A lot of issues were raised about the existing condition of the site, seeming zoning violations, some of which are shown in the photos that were presented tonight. A big point that seems to be lost is that this is a Residence B zone. It's 1 and 2 family houses. It's a residential zone. And even though this facility has been here for years, decades, it doesn't justify allowing it to be expanded, which will decrease the probability that it would be converted to a use that's more conducive with
30 seconds.
Thank you. With the residential neighborhood. The issues of fire suppression are of great concern.
You still there, Michael?
No, he's muted.
All right, next speaker.
That's good.
Okay, I will close public comment. Let me note in the file that there are 12 correspondents from the neighbors in the adjoining building opposing the granting of this relief. Some have spoken this evening. With that, public comment is closed. Mr. Schomer, if you would like any other comments before I turn it to the board.
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just say that we did meet with Mr. Brandon and we did meet with Mr. Cadot. I believe it was back in February when we met with them, and we went through a whole host of issues that they're having with this site in its existing condition. And out of good neighborliness, we made offers to them to address many of these issues that you heard tonight, specifically landscaping. We also offered to move. There's a donation bin on the site. We offered to move that to the other side of the site. So these issues, from our perspective, were all on the table. We offered to do this as an accommodation for the neighbors to win their support for this proposal, but unfortunately, they were not willing to come out and support us on this, and that's unfortunate. We did make best efforts those sorts of accommodations, in my view, could be made conditions of this permit. We're happy to do some landscaping. They didn't previously raise any issue about the fence deteriorating, but I believe we'd be agreeable to replacing that if it needs it. You know, we respect the neighbors' concerns, and we did make an effort to try to reach out to them and resolve those. You know, with that having been said, as I mentioned before, this property has been under this use for exactly a century now. So there's not a single person in this room who moved into that property and was surprised by the fact that it's a gas station all of a sudden. Like, everyone knew what they were getting into when they moved into next door to a gas station at the corner of Mass Ave and Alewife Parkway. We believe that this is a sensitive, appropriate use for this site, will not be detrimental to the neighborhood, and would actually be an improvement. Clean up the site, get a replacement for these pumps, which are, as I believe Mark mentioned, several decades old at this point. You know, we're really trying to improve the condition of this site as a whole and make it look a lot better, look a lot nicer, more light protection for the neighbors, better fire suppression. And we believe this is an all-around win for everyone, but the neighbors disagree. We respect that, and we leave it up to the board.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I will close the presentation part and now turn it to the board for discussion and eventual motion. Let me start the discussion. When I first saw this case, my first question was, and I remember actually when the apartment building was built, and I wanted to know the years, how one building relates to the other. The gas station was built in 1974. The apartment building was built a year later in 1975. There's been a gas station or auto repair facility at that site since 1921. The thought that I have is that most gas stations do have canopies over it. And I think that it serves a dual purpose. One is to, for protect me from the weather when it's inclement, that you have some protection over you. And I think it also does, it's a valid argument that does protect the equipment. I went to one gas station who does not have a canopy. He does not have self-serve. He does have a rudimentary fire suppression system, barely. And asked him if he would require a canopy, and he actually did get a permit for a canopy. He just never built it. He did say to me that with the new electronic equipment that he does not need a canopy at the present. However, his point of sale is not at the pump, and it is in a remote location. So he said that it is somewhat valid that with the new pumps coming out and the fact that you either scan your card or you put your card in or you waive something and that executes the sale, that equipment is somewhat sensitive to really the ice and snow. And we heard that same argument up at the corner of Mount Auburn Street and Aberdeen Avenue here last year from that gas station that wanted a canopy, and we granted relief there. Regarding this particular canopy, I was somewhat pleased when I saw the minimalistic nature of it. It is barely high enough, just allow basically a truck to go in underneath it. I think the minimal state standard may be like 11'6" or something, and this is at 12 foot something. And the fact that it did not have mobile or any kind of glaring signage to it. So the motion that I will make is that the canopy be as presented, not be allowed to have any signage on it and or coloring. Only apparently it's white now, and it should remain as such. And that will reduce its impact on the neighborhood and actually be quite, well, as stealth as it possibly can. Will also house the fire suppression system and a much needed, I think, updated fire suppression system. So those are my thoughts on it anyhow. Jim, any thoughts from you?
No, Jim Monteverdi, I don't have any other comments or questions. Thank you.
Slater,
No comments or questions.
Martina,
No comments or questions.
Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. It seems like our first cases are almost always the most challenging ones, and I'm finding this one challenging as well in that same light. And I think I have a different view, and I just want to be clear about it to the best I can. And you know, I found the testimony that was given tonight and the letters in the record to be compelling. From my perspective, if this case were solely in front of us as a request for a zoning relief in the form of a variance, as it sounds like it is, I would not be inclined to support granting relief. But, and here's where state law comes into play for me at least, I don't think, again, at least in this one board's view, I don't think we ever reached the question of granting relief given the restraint and the constraint of state law, which I view as controlling here. You know, the use of the proposed canopies as set forth in the application and presented tonight, it remains the same as a gas station, and it conforms to our bylaws dimensional requirements, at least as I understand it from the record. So I don't think that the canopies are extending the permitted use or that they're changing the use in a substantially different manner, you know, consistent with case law. So again, in my view, I think the board is required under state law to give the applicant the existing use protection that state law requires. And I don't think we have the discretion to act otherwise. So, you know, to sum up, I would grant it according to section 48, chapter 48, section 6, but I'm not inclined to vote in favor of a variance.
Okay. Let me make a motion then to grant the relief requested to construct two dimensionally compliant accessory structures over the existing fuel pump islands. The board finds that a little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would involve a substantial hardship to the petitioner. The board finds that the construction of the canopies is necessary to shield the fuel pumps from weather due to the sensitivity of the computer equipment, and also to provide necessary protection to customers at the site from inclement weather. The board finds that the hardship is owing to the fact that the property is a pre-existing non-conforming gas station that was built with uncovered fuel islands prior to the area being zoned for residential use. Hence, the property is encumbered by the change of use from the previous business allowed use to residential use. The existing uncovered fuel island pumps do require canopies to protect the equipment as previously stated, and that the new modern fuel pumps coming online have such equipment that we would accept the presentation to require some protection. The board finds that desirable relief may be granted without the detriment to the public good. The board finds that the proposed canopies will comply with all the dimensional requirements, will increase the safety, and will enable the site to be upgraded and provide additional light screening for the neighbors. The board finds that desirable relief may be granted without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the ordinance. The proposed condition of the site will be substantially less detrimental to the neighbors than the existing condition, which is presently somewhat unappealing with the unshielded light impacts, and the proposed canopies will promote the safety and reduce the visual impacts. I will make the motion that we will grant the relief requested, provided that the canopies are constructed and maintained as per the drawing submitted, the visual simulations as presented and initialed by the chair, that there be no signage allowed on the canopies and no coloring on the canopies going forward. Any other conditions from any member of the board?
No.
On the motion then to grant the relief requested for the variance. Jim Monteverdi,
Jim Monteverdi, I vote yes for the variance.
Slater,
Slater Anderson votes yes for the variance.
Martina Williams,
I vote yes for the variance.
Jason,
Jason Marshall, no for the variance for the reasons stated prior, although I appreciate the chair's development of the motion. Thank you.
thank you. Brendan Sullivan votes yes to grant the variance. Variance is granted.
Thank you very much, members.
You don't have the drawings, yeah.
Your mic in your, can you minimize this? This is yours, right?
Yeah, this is mine.
Okay, can you mute everything? Because it's sending a lot of feedback.
Yeah. Oh, it's on. It's on.
Mic and
Oh.
the tablet mic.
Unmute that.
Okay, it's unmuted, and then mic in the tablet's muted too.
So what do I have to do? Yeah.
That's fine. Can you minimize it? Is the mic of the tablet muted as well, in addition to the?
I don't know.
Can
Yes,
you
you
go
can.
more, or is there?
I don't know. Should I shut this off?
Okay, is there a mic?
Settings? No. You could just bear with us a sec. We're having a little technical difficulty. So that gets me in. Oops.
Where's your volume?
Up here, up top.
Just turn it down.
Yeah, I did.
It's not even. I was just trying to figure out which one it was.
Yeah. Oops.
And that sounds from the picture.
Internet audio. Okay. All right, put that done. The board will hear case number 106-662-599 Mass Avenue, 605 Mass Avenue, and 2-12 Essex Street. Mr. Klasnick?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dan Klasnick, representing Verizon Wireless, to modify this existing facility installed on the buildings located at 599-605 Mass Ave and 212 Essex Street. Just by way of a little background, it was originally approved by special permit in 2005 with a prior modification approved by this board in 2019. Back in January, Verizon submitted an application for this qualified Section 6409 eligible facility modification request. We included, all the normal city forms and a detailed project, a narrative, photo simulations. And then in February at that meeting, there was a continuance granted. And then for this continued hearing, a supplemental filing was provided consisting of revised plans with the last revision date of 4/2/21 and photo simulations. Just by way of description of what's currently there, Verizon Wireless currently has 12 antennas installed on the buildings and mounted to the side of its rooftop mounted equipment shelter. Because of the recent construction of the building at 212 Essex Street, the signals from the antennas mounted on the rooftop shelter are being blocked essentially. So to address this issue and also to enhance network performance, Verizon Wireless proposes to relocate what are designated as the alpha sector antennas mounted on the rooftop shelter, as I said, to the roof of the adjoining Essex Street building, and then to also add two antennas. Oh, I just realized I don't have video on. There I am. So if it would be possible just to scroll down to sheet Z3, please. Sorry, just a little further up. I think it's one more, perhaps, or is that Z3? Okay, yeah, that's it. I'm sorry. This is the proposed rooftop plan. So what we're proposing to do is, as I had said, there are 4 antennas currently mounted on the equipment shelter, and we'll be installing instead 4 antennas inside the false fiberglass penthouse that will be designed to match the appearance of the building. There will be 2 remote radio heads installed behind the enclosure. And if we could just move to the next sheet, please. As it's a little difficult to see, but on this sheet, Verizon Wireless is also adding 2 antennas to the other sectors by relocating an existing antenna and installing a new pipe mount, and then they will be basically stacking it. So at the end, we currently have 12 antennas. We will then have a total of 14 antennas installed with 5 on these 2 sectors, and then 4 located within that penthouse enclosure. I don't know if we can please move to the next sheet. This just provides you with an elevation view. We see on the on my left, anyways, that's the proposed fiberglass enclosure, and then to the right are the existing antennas as they will be modified, as I said, to add 1 additional antenna by stacking it above the other. And then there are just 3 other elevation views that might be helpful or not to take just a quick look at. Well, that shows, yeah, okay. So once again, this shows perhaps a little better view of what's being proposed as far as modifying the existing antennas to stack mount them. And then once again also shows the proposed penthouse enclosure on the rooftop of the 212 Essex Street building. And then we did include as well photo simulations. So I don't know if it'd be possible just to scroll down to those. And then if we could just look at the actual site location map, which is the next sheet, please. So we provided 4 different locations surrounding the structure on Essex, Bishops Avenue, and then 2 for Mass Ave. And then the next slide, if we could please. This is the first view. On the left is the actual view taken from Mass Ave. The antennas are those black boxes up there in the corner. And then if we go to the, well, that's the same actual, that's the other one actual view. I don't know if these are in a slightly different order. In any event, so this is actually a depiction of the proposed penthouse enclosure that will be installed on top of the 212 Essex Street building. So what we've tried to do is color it to match the existing penthouse and the building itself. And then I think there was just one further photo simulation. This one's taken from Essex Street, showing the installation of the proposed penthouse. So I think what we've tried to do is utilize an existing installation to provide additional service and also to address a difficulty with interference resulting from the construction of the 212 Essex Street building by relocating the antennas, as I had said, off the equipment shelter into that enclosure to match the texture and color of the building. We feel that this does satisfy all the standards as well for a section 6409A modification, and then therefore we just respectfully request the board grant the requested modification to the special permit. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Any questions by members of the board? Jim?
Jim Monteverdi, one question. You mentioned that the new head house, the fiberglass element, will on its exterior face match the color and texture, I guess, of the existing penthouse on that new building. Is that
Yes.
correct?
That is
Yeah,
correct.
and some of the graphics, I think, in the presentation kind of show it as a brick, simulated brick. I'm assuming that's not what it's to be.
Exactly. Yeah, I had that same exact question, and that's just done for illustration purposes to highlight, I was told by the A&E firm. So no, it will match the photo simulations to match the appearance.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Martina, any questions?
No questions at this time.
Jason, any questions?
Jason Marshall, no questions, Mr. Chair.
Slater?
No questions.
And I don't have any questions either. I'll open it up to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the button that says participants and then click the button that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. Calling in, you'll have up to 3 minutes to comment. It appears that nobody is calling in. I will note for the file that I will note that there are no letters of correspondence in the file. There was no correspondence from the planning board, which tends to comment on these type of cases, and there are no correspondence from the planning board. So I will close public comment. Any other questions, comments from council?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Discussions, motion?
Motion.
Let me make a motion. There are a couple of findings. In reviewing a special permit application for mobile communication facilities, in particular, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall consider the following in reaching its determination: the scope or limitation imposed by any license secured from any state or federal agency having jurisdiction over limitation. Correct?
That's correct.
The extent to which the visual impact of the various elements of the proposed facility is minimized. Through your presentation, it shows that there will be as stealth an application as possible. Through the use of materials that in texture and color blend in with the materials to which the facilities are attached. And for the record, that the illustration showing the brick, they're just for highlighting purposes and are not the actual finished product. It will be as per the photo simulations. And there are other effective means to reduce the visual impact of the facility from the site. Also, we have to find a number of the granting of a special permit. It gets a little wordy. Granting a special permit, it appears that the requirements of a special permit. The board finds that traffic generated or patterns of access or egress would not cause congestion, hazard, or substantial change in the established neighborhood character. The board notes the previous granting of special permits at this location, and that also the existing character of the continued operation of or development of adjacent uses as permitted in the zoning ordinance would not be adversely affected by the nature of the proposed use. There would not be any nuisance or hazard created to the detriment of the health, safety, and or welfare of the occupant of the proposed use or to the citizens of the city. And for other reasons, the proposed use would not impair the integrity of the district or adjoining district otherwise derogate from the intent and purpose of the ordinance. Also, there are other findings that we must make. The board also finds that the modification of its existing telecommunication facility at the site proposed by the petitioner does not substantially change the physical dimension of the existing wireless tower or base station as such facility within the meaning of section 6409 of the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012 is known as the Spectrum Act. Based on these findings, the chair moves that the petition be granted the special permit subject to the following conditions: that the work proceed in accordance with the plan submitted by the petitioner. Upon completion of the work, the physical appearance and visual impact of the proposed work will be consistent with the photo simulations submitted by the petitioner and initialed by the chair. That the petitioner shall at all times maintain the proposed work so that its physical appearance and visual impacts will remain consistent with the photo simulations previously referred to. That should the petitioner cease to utilize the equipment approved tonight for a continuous period of 6 months or more, it shall promptly thereafter remove such equipment and restore the building on which it is located to its prior condition and appearance to the extent reasonably practical. That the petitioner is in compliance with and will continue to comply with in all respects, the conditions imposed by this board with regard to previous special permits granted to the petitioner with regard to the site in question. Further, inasmuch as the health effects of the transmissions of electromagnetic energy waves is a matter of ongoing societal concern and scientific study, the special permit is also subject to the following conditions: that the petitioner shall file with the Inspectional Services Department each report it files with the federal authorities regarding electromagnetic energy waves emissions emitting from the petitioner's equipment on the site. Each such report shall be filed with the Inspectional Services Department no later than 10 business days after the report has been filed with the federal authorities. Failure to timely file any such report with Inspectional Services Department shall ipso facto terminate the special permit granted tonight. That in the event at any time federal authorities notify the petitioner that its equipment on the site, including but not limited to the special permit granted tonight, fails to comply with the requirements of law or governmental regulation, whether with regard to the emission of electromagnetic energy waves or otherwise, the petitioner, within 10 business days of receipt of such notification of such failure, shall file with the Inspectional Services Department a report disclosing in reasonable detail that such failure has occurred and the basis for such claimed failure. The special permit granted tonight shall ipso facto terminate if any of the petitioner's federal licenses are suspended, revoked, or terminated. That to the extent that a special permit has terminated pursuant to the foregoing paragraph A and B, the petitioner may apply to this board for a new special permit, provided that the public notice concerning such application disclose in reasonable detail that the application has been filed because of a termination of special permit pursuant to paragraph A or B above. Any such new application shall not be deemed a repetitive petition and therefore will not be subject to the 2-year period during which repetitive petitions may not be filed. That within 10 business days after receipt of a building permit for the installation of the equipment subject to this petition, the petitioner shall file with the Inspectional Services Department a sworn affidavit of the person in charge of the installation of equipment by the petitioner with a geographical area that includes Cambridge. And B, that the equipment being installed pursuant to the special permit we are granting tonight will comply with all federal safety rules and will be situated and maintained in locations with appropriate barricades and other protections, such that individuals, including nearby residents and occupants of nearby structures, will be sufficiently protected from excessive radio frequency radiation under federal law. To grant the special permit as per the application. Jim.
Jim Monteverde, I vote in favor.
Martina,
Martina Williams, I vote in favor.
Jason Marshall,
Jason Marshall, yes, in favor of the special permit.
Slater,
Slater Anderson in favor.
Brendan Sullivan in favor. The special permit is granted on the affirmative vote of 5 members of the board.
Thank you very much. I
Yes,
appreciate
good
it.
night.
Have a Good night.
The board will now hear case number 1.5 Broadway. Ms. O'Connor. Ms. O'Connor?
She disappeared.
I'm unmuting. All right.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Yes, I'm the owner of a 343.5 Broadway, a 3-4 duplex, a single family. I've owned it since 1993. And I'm looking for a change of use variance from a 1-family to a 2-family. The Article 526, with regard to response to that, I will refer to Alex Van Prague, the architect. Any other questions, of course, please feel free to ask me. I've looked a lot into the history of my house, and any questions?
Okay. Just as a background, going through the file, I noticed that the house was originally a 2-family, way back.
The house was originally in 1872, was considered 2 houses. At some point in 1947, it was separated. There was several convergence doctrines that fell upon the house, and I 6 years ago, when I went to apply for this change of use, I was told that I needed to deal with the convergence doctrine first. And so I hired a prominent lawyer to deal with that. And that took 4 years. So now I'm here, and it is actually 2 separate properties at this point. And 343.5.
Right. Let me note for the record, the zoning board granted in case number 6210 back in January 24 of 1991, a special permit to convert the existing 2 and to park 2 cars in tandem. So back in 1991,
yes,
the city
that never occurred. That never occurred. He never changed it into that use, and it continued as a 2-family until now.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what brings you here is that you would like to take your side and
Yes.
you would create 2 apartments.
Yes.
And so that you would live on 1 apartment and put into your application, and then you would rent out the other,
Yes.
The part thereof. And the reason for it is to allow you to stay in the building, to live there, and that the additional rental will help defer the expenses and the maintenance and what have you. Is
Yes, as the BZA has referred to it last time, aging in place.
We're all doing that. Okay. Anything else to add?
No, but with regard to the dimensional form and the questions regarding that, I will refer you to the architect.
Okay.
Alex Prague,
All right, we'll see if we have any questions to that nature. Let me ask any members of the board, any questions at all, Jim?
Jim Monteverde, I do have a question. Cissy, do you happen to have the plan? The site plan or floor plan?
Yeah.
So, Connor, facing the building, the duplex you want to convert to a 2-family is on the left-hand side?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. And the dimensional form says that there are 2 parking spaces?
Yes, those are existing parking spaces. There was in 2016, 2016, there was actually a garage that was behind there. And there has been a lot of evidence of continued use of two cars being parked there.
And are those 2 parking spaces for 343 and a half Broadway?
Well, there are, on that plan, there are 4 parking spaces, 2 for 343 and 2 for 343 and a half. So
Okay.
yes, each side has 2.
And your intention is there'll be 1 parking space for each of the units?
Yes.
So if you're granted the opportunity to use, to convert it to a 2-family?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Jason, any questions?
Jason Marshall, no questions.
Martina,
Martina Williams, no questions.
Slater.
No questions.
Okay, and I have no questions either. Let me open it to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the button that says participants and then click the button that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. You will have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Alex, you can speak.
Okay, thank you. My name's Alex Van Prague. I live at 95 Antrim Street. I'm the architect who did the drawings that are currently on the screen. I've reviewed the case with Angelica. I think she's presented it well. And basically, the variance is required because the house exceeds the FAR. It's an existing condition that would not change. Going from the single to the 2-family would not affect the exterior of the house. So I'm just voicing my professional and personal support for this application.
Right, thank you.
Nobody else.
Nobody else calling in, I will.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if you're trying to speak. I think you're on mute.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Oh, okay.
How's that?
All right. Ms. O'Connor, any comments at all?
Not that I can think of at the moment, but I would welcome this relief.
Okay. All right, comments by the board or motion?
Motion, please.
Article 5.26, conversion of dwellings. No new dwelling unit created by the conversion of existing dwelling into a greater number of units or by addition or enlargement of an existing dwelling shall be permitted unless the requirements of minimum lot area for each dwelling unit, maximum ratio of floor area, private open space, and off-street parking are satisfied for all dwelling. Some of that cannot be satisfied, obviously, as part of a duplex, so that some of the requirements obviously cannot be met, hence the request for a variance. Let me make a motion then to grant the relief requested to changing of the use of the house from a 1-family to a 2-family residence with no exterior alterations. The board finds that a literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would involve a substantial hardship to the petitioner because it would preclude her from having a rental apartment in the building. The existing building has rather excessive for her immediate needs and requires a lot of upkeep and expenses, that the addition of a unit would be helpful to her enormously to ally those coming expenses related to the fact that it is part of a duplex, hence that it violates a number of the dimensional requirements. The board notes that at one time it was listed as a two-family residence and acknowledged so by the city, that there is sufficient parking to accommodate the additional unit. The board finds that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and would not nullify as substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the ordinance to allow people to remain in their homes, to provide housing for people of all income levels, and to assist people as they change in life to accommodate their somewhat aging in place and allow them to stay in their property. On those, for those reasons, I make a motion that we grant the variance. Jason, on the motion.
Jason Marshall, yes to the relief requested.
Machina,
Yes to the relief requested.
Slater,
Yes to the relief requested.
and Jim,
Jim Monteverdi, yes to the relief request.
and Brendan Sullivan, yes to granting of the variance. So the variance is granted on the affirmative vote of 5 members of the board. Good luck, Mrs. O'Connor.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
After the other.
Okay. The board will now hear case number 117709, 8 Poplar Road. We are returning to the regular agenda, which was scheduled at 6:30, and the first case is Poplar Road. Mr. Anderson.
I need a minute to just transfer people.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So I appreciate the continuance on this for the reason of advertising this for the variance for the increase in non-conforming height. That is really due to a change in the average grade due to the addition of a basement egress access there, and the special permit for some changes to window openings in the non-conforming setback. I guess the variance is also due to adding guardrails to those window wells, which happen to be in the setbacks. And happy to run through the drawings if
you could do so, probably very briefly. I think the board is familiar with them, but if we just want to.
Yeah, I think probably just the site plan, Cynthia, if you don't mind, which is the 4th page. So it's an existing 3-family, remaining the 3-family. This shows the location at the front and rear of the window wells proposed. Those are bubbled and shown in red. And then on the left-hand side, the areaway to the basement sprinkler room. The only other place to just refer to quickly is in the proposed elevations, which are down. Yep, I think next to the last, 2 more down, right there, number 18. And that just shows the slight relocation and reduction in size of one of the window openings, really to avoid a shower location in a bathroom. Trina Murphy is here on the call. She's been in contact as the owner's representative for D&D Homes with the neighbors. So that's had a neighborhood meeting. Trina, would you like to speak to any responses that you've had so far?
Hi, good evening, everybody. This is Trina Murphy from D&D Homes, as Dan introduced us, and thank you very much, Dan, for the explanation. So we had, we know that we were before the planning board earlier and learned that we had a variance as well as a special permit situation, and we deferred to this upcoming meeting. So our communications with the neighbors were early on in preparation for the prior planning board meeting, where we discussed the changes that were, being proposed here tonight. And, there was really more questions about ongoing construction timelines, but no concerns about the modifications and the special permit and variance requests that we have before us tonight. So it was all very positive.
Great, thanks, Trina.
Thank you.
I might ask staff to pull up the existing basement plan and then look at the proposed. So the existing building, there was access into the basement from all 3 units. Is that correct, from a interior stairway?
That is correct.
And the proposal, obviously, that interior stairway becomes part of a unit, of 3 units.
That is also correct.
Which eliminates the access into the basement. So in order to get access into the basement to the common mechanical room, that then necessitates the exterior stairway.
Also correct, yes. So we're relocating just a little bit to the south from where the existing basement access door was from the driveway side. And it's being moved just, I guess it's about 6 feet south.
I guess the problem that I have is maxing out every square inch of the building from, the basement all the way up to the underside of the roof, vertically, and then also front to back. And obviously that then necessitates having to apply for a variance for that stairway going down. If there was an interior stairway as there is now, then obviously you wouldn't have to bump out, you wouldn't have to put out a stairway, and you wouldn't have to now come back and ask for relief. So it's really sort of maximizing every square inch of that footprint of a building while you're stepping outside the footprint, actually. I guess the thing that I really chagrined about is the infilling of the porches, front and back. But then again, I guess the building department's position is that that can be done as of right. So that's not part of any relief being sought. Is that
correct? And
that's correct.
Yeah, and the relief is due to that areaway essentially decreasing or lowering the average grade, which is the building department's and zoning criteria for the height of the building. So it's
so right now it's actually over the max height. Max is 35 and you're at 35.3 and you're going up to 38.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a minimum ask, but yes, you are correct in saying that because this is being renovated in this way, that it necessitates a common access to a common sprinkler room, and that's pushed back in order to allow greater use of that basement area for living space.
And so, so the only way to, so basically what you're doing is you're taking what was access into the basement and making it basically market square footage, marketable square footage units.
That's right. So yeah, so we're not changing the interior footprint of the existing basement. We're essentially adding the mechanical room onto the reconstructed rear porch.
The other thing that's also changed that I wanted to highlight is there's a pretty significant reconfiguration of the interior living space, altering the spaces so they're more conducive to sort of current lifestyles of living. So one of the units does not exist in the basement level at all. It's only on the top floor of the building. So a big part of it. So even if we were to find a common space between unit 1 and unit 2 into the basement or access for the sprinkler room, the 3rd floor, there is no staircase going from the 3rd floor down to the 2nd, down to the 1st, down to the lower level. So it complicates sort of the new design of the house.
Yeah, I don't like it, but then again, my attention has to be to the relief that's being requested and required. So anyhow, any questions by members of the board? Comments? Jim
Monteverdi, one question. I didn't find on the, if there was an existing elevation. What's the height of the existing height in the basement?
The existing height in the basement is just above 7 feet. I believe it's 7.1.
So you don't have to do anything to it. And so it basically counts as floor area now, and you're
It's
really not
existing.
adding any floor area to the building in total, correct?
That is correct, Jim.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Slater, any questions?
No questions.
Jason?
Jason Marshall, no questions.
Martina?
No questions.
All right, let me open it to public comment. Any members of the public who wish to speak should now click the button that says participants and then click the button that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6, and you will have up to 3 minutes to speak. There appears to be no one calling in. Also, there is no correspondence in the file from any concerned citizen. Okay, with that, I will close public comment. Ms. Murphy, can you give us somewhat of a report on the neighbors' comments at all? I know you had mentioned about they may have been more concerned about just the construction and obviously dealing with contractors and noise and so on and so forth. Did anybody have any comments at all about the areaways or access into the basement, or if this was going to change the character of the neighborhood at all?
So there were no discussions about any change in the character of the neighborhood. I had explained to them that it's a 3-unit property now and will remain a 3-unit property. I explained that we have a sprinkler system going in, bringing it up to code. As part of the reason, that is the reason why we need this exterior access. I ran through the floor plans with them so they understood the change in the interior layout versus what they have now. We went over, window placements generally, so they understood, whether privacy was going to change. And really, beyond that, there was no comment or discussion further, any concern at all about what we were planning to do. And it was really, how long is the construction going to take? What are the construction hours? How are you managing the dumpster? What are you doing about supplies? Things like that. It really was a solely, active construction-based conversation,
Great.
more than it was any concern about what we're planning to do or we're proposing to do.
All right. Okay, Mr. Anderson, anything else to add?
No, happy to respond to any additional questions, but I think we've covered the ground.
Okay. Comments by the board or motion? No comments?
No comments.
No comments.
Let me make a motion. There is going to be 2 motions: a variance to increase the non-conforming height due to change in the average grade and the addition of window well railings in non-conforming setbacks. The board finds that a little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would involve a substantial hardship to the petitioner because it would preclude the petitioner creating direct exterior access to the commonly accessible sprinkler mechanical room and the window wells at the basement emergency egress windows as required by the state building code. The hardship is owing to the related shape of the lot and the placement of the existing structure on the lot, which precludes the existing ordinance. And as such, the existing building is hampered by the requirements of the current ordinance. The placement of the area way access stair is the only location not violating yard setbacks. The placement of the proposed window wells allowing for bedroom emergency egress windows are in the only location that is feasible vis-a-vis the interior layout. These conditions do not generally affect the zoning district in which it is located. The board finds that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. And the board notes that the code does require guardrails at the window wells to provide for safety, and the board finds that they are visually unobtrusive. The board finds that desirable relief may be granted without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the ordinance. The board finds that the granting of this relief will not substantially derogate from the intent, as the proposed increase in height is due to the minimal change in the average grade, and that no additional stories or change to the existing roof structure is proposed. Therefore, would not be disturbing open views to the sky, increasing shadow impact, or otherwise impacting abutters. On motion then to grant the variance and the relief sought. Jim.
Jim Monteverdi in favor of the variance requested.
Slater.
Slater Anderson in favor of the variance.
Martina.
Martina Williams in favor of the variance.
Jason.
Jason Marshall, yes to the variance.
Brendan Sullivan, yes, granting the variance. Also, a condition of granting the variance is that the work comply with the drawings and also the dimensional forms as submitted and initialed by the chair. Now, in the special permit, the change of openings and a non-conforming setback. The board finds that the requirements of the ordinance cannot be met without the granting of a special permit. The proposed project at 8 Poplar Road improves the existing non-conforming three-family structure within the existing footprint and proposes no increase in the gross building area. The board finds that the project includes the installation of a full building sprinkling system, which will be a plus to the residents of the building and also the adjoining building having a fully sprinkled building in its midst. The proposed basement window wells serve the code required bedroom emergency egress window regulations and are located in the only location feasible. The left side yard is too narrow and the right side yard is occupied by parking, and unit access and access to the common mechanical room also hampers other locations. The board finds that traffic generated or patterns of access or egress would not cause congestion, hazard, or substantial change in the established neighborhood character. The board finds that continued operation of or development of adjacent uses as permitted in the zoning ordinance would not be adversely affected by the nature of the proposed use, and that the basement window wells and areaway access stairs create no limitation on existing uses. The board finds that there would not be any nuisance or hazard created to the detriment of the health, safety, and or welfare of the occupants of the proposed use or to the citizens of the city by the granting of this special permit, and that the proposed use would not impair the integrity of the district or adjoining districts. On that basis, then the board grants the special permit for the change of the openings in the non-conforming setbacks. Jim Monteverdi.
Jim Monteverdi, yes, in favor of the special permit.
Slater.
Slater Anderson in favor of the special permit.
Martina.
Martina Williams in favor of the special permit.
And Jason.
Jason Marshall, yes in favor of the special permit.
And Brendan Sullivan, yes, also to granting the special permit, also as a condition that the work proceed with the compliance with the drawings and also the dimensional forms as submitted. The special permit granted. Now, Mr. Anderson, regarding the other case, which was Case number 112132, which was the initial one asking for the special permit. I would make a motion then, or could you agree to make a motion to withdraw that application?
Yes, without prejudice.
Okay. Well, they're all with prejudice anyhow, if you withdraw it, because it's still there are 2 years. And it's
Yes,
mute now because the relief has been granted anyhow.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so Brendan, it's Slater, Jim Monteverdi, Jason, and Martina. I would make a motion then to accept the petitioner's request to withdraw the petition for a special permit, case number 112132. Slater. On the motion to
Approved.
withdraw.
Approved.
Jim Monteverdi.
Jim Monteverdi, yes, in favor of the motion.
Jason.
Jason Marshall, yes, in favor of the motion.
And Martina.
Martina Williams, yes, in favor of the motion.
Great. Okay, the motion is withdrawn. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yep. If we could be allowed to have just a 5-minute recess for a moment, I have some paperwork, and we get on to the next case, will be Monsignor O'Brien Highway.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back. Every member of the board is present, accounted for. The board will hear case number 107-397, 200 Monsignor O'Brien Highway. Mr. Curley?
I'm here for the applicant here. My name is Phil Silverman. I'm here with Tony Capicetti, who is the civil engineer on the project. And what we're seeking is a special permit relative to some pre-existing non-conforming parking at 200 Monsignor O'Brien Highway. And we're seeking to reconfigure the existing parking lot there due to some feedback that we received from the city staff in the context of a special permit from the planning board for Nuestra LLC to operate a marijuana retail facility there. And so the result, as Tony's going to go over, the result that we have is 5 parking spaces in the lot, and we're really no closer to the side lot than the existing non-conforming spaces. But there are a lot of safety enhancements, and it also enhances alternative transportation options. If this sounds somewhat familiar to the board, it probably should if you've been here for a couple of years. A prior applicant at this same exact site asked for the same relief a couple of years back and actually received it. They were going for a medical marijuana facility, and that they obtained the relief, but they didn't proceed forward with the city. And so my client is moving forward now. So we're seeking the exact same relief. And maybe I could just let Tony sort of walk you through it right now. So go ahead, take it, Tony.
Thank you. Tony Capichetti, Hayes Engineering, 603 Salem Street, Wakefield, Massachusetts. As Phil said, the existing site, and I think we did provide an existing site plan, had 7 spaces. They were all against the property line to the south or rear of the site, and to the east, and to the west, with the loading zone that was adjacent to the abutter to the east, which is also the same property owner as the proposed project site. In talking with staff as we went through the parking requirements, the existing layout is not a great layout. It requires vehicles to back up, occupy portions of the sidewalk to make 3-point turns, and exit back out to Monsignor Avenue. So the proposed layout, in talking to staff, which is, I believe, the next plan, it shows 4 spaces, 2 being compact, up against the abutting building, which is to the east, which is under common ownership. We try and honor the setback as much as possible, but we are up against that line. And then a handicap space adjacent to the building that is compliant. We provide enough room for a turnaround for vehicles to back out and exit kind of head on into Monsignor O'Brien. And then we are now providing bicycle parking as well, and some enhanced landscaping. The reasons for not occupying the rear line is there is a multifamily residential use, so we tried to focus it so the headlights would be towards buildings under the control of the applicant. So that's the reasoning for the design, and we've also accommodated the proposed bicycle lane along Monsignor O'Brien Highway.
Great, thank you. Any other comments to present?
Not from us. We're all set.
Okay. Comments from the board? Any questions?
No questions.
Let me open it to public comment. Any members of the public who wish to speak should now click the button that says participants, and then click the button that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. You'll have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Charles Hines. Charles Hines.
Hi, my name is Charles Hines. I live at 207 half Charles Street, East Cambridge. I'm current president of the East Cambridge Planning Team, and I'm here to support the application for a special permit. We actually supported the previous application for the other marijuana facility. Basically, in the neighborhood, we've had 5 applications for marijuana facilities. We've opposed them all except this one. We think it's a perfect place for a retail cannabis establishment. And we would like to give the new Westra the support for the parking that they need. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I don't see anyone else.
It appears to be nobody else calling in, and there was no other correspondence in the file, so I will close public comment. Any other comments by the presenter at all?
No comments.
No, no need to Okay, discussion by the board or a motion.
Ready for a motion?
Motion? Let me make a motion. This is a special permit to reconfigure an existing non-conforming parking lot and locate 4 on-grade open parking spaces within 5 feet of the side and rear property lines, but no closer than those previously existed. The board finds that the requirements of the ordinance cannot be met without the granting of a special permit. The board finds that traffic generated or patterns of access or egress would not cause congestion, hazard, or substantial change in the established neighborhood character. The board accepts the presentation that Nuestra sought a special permit from the planning board to operate a cannabis retail store at the site. The Cambridge Planning Board, Community Development Department, and the Traffic, Parking, and Transportation Department recommended alterations to the site as demonstrated on the enclosed plan to enhance vehicle and pedestrian safety, improve the street front views, and allow for increased sustainable transportation options on the site. The board finds that continued operation of or development of adjacent uses as permitted in the zoning ordinance would not be adversely affected by the nature of the proposed use. The proposed plan reduces the parking impact on the site and allows substantial improvements to the visual character, the lot safety, and the alternative modes of transportation, all of which are positive impacts on the adjacent uses. There would not be any nuisance or hazard created to the detriment of the health, safety, and/or welfare of the occupants of the proposed use or to the citizens of the city. The board also notes the approval by the East Cambridge Planning Team for this particular site and the proposed use. The board also notes a prior application for modification of the on-site parking plan, very similar to the one before us tonight. And the previous application had been also approved by the board. And the board finds that the proposed use would not impair the integrity of the district or adjoining district, nor otherwise derogate from the intent and purpose of the ordinance. That the work be in compliance with the plan as presented, entitled Site Plan Number 200, Monsignor Brian, initialed by the chair. Jim Monteverdi.
Jim Monteverdi in favor of the special permit.
Slater.
Slater Anderson in favor of the special permit.
Martina.
Martina Williams in favor of the special permit.
Jason.
Jason Marshall, yes, in favor of the special permit.
And Brendan Sullivan, yes, the special permit is granted.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yep. The board will hear. Is it 7 o'clock yet? It must be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, well past 7. Okay. 304, 212 Western Avenue. Mr. Von Zaberin?
In here?
Yeah, it's just required.
Yeah.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you turn to page 11, A06, please? Right there, perfect, thank you. I'm Marcus von Zabern, the architect of the proposed project. I'm just going to read a brief introductory statement of the project. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We're proposing a Chinese restaurant. In order to be competitive and successful, the owner wants to cook dishes that are unique and not provided by other restaurants in the area. The type of dish is known as a rice pot. Cooking this type of dish requires more kitchen space to accommodate the rice cooker equipment. we decided to locate the kitchen in the existing basement, which is not used for any purpose and is empty. It has a high ceiling, which is 9-foot ceiling in parts, and has good natural daylighting in that same area. The basement is a good location for a kitchen. To make the kitchen work perfectly, we need to use more than the 40% space allowed for non-residential use in the business A3 zone. The area we need is roughly 44% in lieu of the 40%. We seek to be able to use the portions of the basement that are unused. Thank you.
Okay. The board will note for the record that in 2018, that this board granted a fast food and takeout variance for this particular property to a previous restaurant, which fell in hard times and then just never continued. And the 212 Kitchen is a new establishment. Is that correct, Marcus? How long has the proposed restaurant been at this location?
This is a new, yes, the answer is yes.
Yes, okay.
But it's the same owner. They decided to change the plans a little bit from what was proposed in 2018. But the idea is still the same. In 2018, it was about fast food and delivery. That was the issue, I think, that they.
Okay, and this one is more.
This one is to
more sit down and geared to the neighbor.
Correct.
The neighborhood, rather.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and seeing the photos of the existing basement, it is obviously fallen into great disrepair, totally unusable. There is some mechanical equipment there related to the residences and also, I think, to the restaurant. But other than that, the space has really become useless.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, and not viable until this proposal before us to use it with regard to the restaurant. Okay. Any questions by members of the board? Jason, any questions?
I just had one question. It looks like on the application, there was the first page of the application, there's a box checked that listed appeal. And I want to just confirm, it seems like that maybe was checked in error. Not really sure what's being appealed.
I'm sorry, where was that, Jason?
The cover page for the application.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can pull it up on the screen here. I think there's 2 checks.
On the application form?
Correct.
Yeah, we're seeking a variance from the rule.
That's it. Solely a variance. You're not appealing a decision of the Inspectional Services Department?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
I think I was incorrectly marked.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Martina, any questions?
Not at this time.
Slater?
No questions.
Jim?
Jim Monteverdi, I have one question, maybe 2. Is there a difference in the seating count between the restaurant now and the restaurant in its proposed configuration? Will you increase the number of seats?
This proposal has a number of seats. There was no, You mean the 2018 version?
Yeah, I saw a plan that I could basically count in the existing condition. I think I could count seats versus the proposed condition where I could count seats again. And it looked like there was just an increase in seating capacity in the proposed iteration.
Which sheet? Maybe, let's see. Can you go up one sheet up? Yeah, in this drawing. So this is what we're proposing.
Right.
There was nothing. There was a pizza restaurant there prior.
Right. Okay.
So this is the seating we're proposing.
Okay. And you don't have any requirement for parking? Or you don't need any relief for parking?
No, it's no change to any exterior except for signage. Yeah, there's no parking change. Yeah, there's street.
Right, there was no parking previously, there is no parking now.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
there's parking for the residents, I understand. I think there's 3 spaces and for the business, but there's no change to the parking proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Let me open it to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the button that says participants, and then click the button that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. It appears that nobody is calling in. And there was also no correspondence in the file from any interested member of the public. So therefore, I will close public comment. Anything else to add, Marcus, at all?
It's not, the primary argument is that we want to use the unused space. The basement has a complex structure. If you look at the actual proposed kitchen space, if it was efficiently laid out in an empty space, it would be under 40%. A lot of it's just corridor space that happens to be in the kitchen. So, but the main argument is the unused space, using that.
Okay. Any questions, comments by the board, or a motion?
Ready for a motion?
I make a motion then to grant the relief requested, which be to use the existing basement space as per the plan and the limitations presented in the application, the drawings and the dimensional form, to allow the use of that basement area as defined for commercial use, which will exceed the 40% restriction under Article 4. The board notes that the 40% will be increased by 10% to approximately 44%. Board finds that a literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would involve a substantial hardship to the petitioner. The board finds that the existing basement is not used for any valid purpose except for some mechanical equipment related to the restaurant and to the residents that has fallen into great disrepair, has become somewhat useless and of no value to either the residences or to the kitchen in its current, to the restaurant in its current condition. The entire basement ceiling is over 7 feet and the rear portion is at 9 feet. The order for the business to be viable and to produce a product of pot rice warmers that the unused space in the basement would be required for the kitchen, cooking, equipment, and food preparation. The hardship is owing to the fact that the premise is a pre-existing non-conforming use and similar in character with other buildings in the neighborhood. The board finds that the use for the restaurant was granted by a previous board at this location. The proposed work will utilize an unused space in the basement, and that due to the haphazard location of existing structural elements throughout the basement, a significantly larger than typical portion of the plan is counted as non-residential, is dedicated to corridors and circulation, whereas the expansion of an actual functional kitchen space is somewhat minimal and does without affecting the use and operation of the residences. Desirable relief may be granted without either the substantial detriment to the public good, and relief may be granted without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the ordinance. To allow for a restaurant to become viable with the allowing the use of what is now useless space in a basement. On that motion, and that the work comply with the dimensional requirements, the dimensional form and the drawings as submitted with the application and initialed by the chair. On the motion to grant the variance, Martina.
Yes to the variance.
Jason.
Jason Marshall, yes to the variance.
Later.
Slater Anderson, yes to the variance.
Jim.
And Jim Monteverdi, yes to the variance.
And Brendan Sullivan, yes. On the affirmative vote of 5 members of the board, the variance is granted. Good luck.
Thank you.
The board will hear case number 113723, 63 Orchard Street.
Hi, I'm Lauren Stewart. I'm the owner of 63 Orchard Street. I'm here with James Sullivan, who's our contractor, and can describe the project if you'd like.
Yes.
Hello, I'm James Sullivan. We are looking to construct a one-story addition on the west side of 63 Orchard Street. Setbacks, we're within all our setbacks. What we're dealing with is going slightly over on our FAR calculations. The existing conditions, we are at 0.495. The requirements are 0.5, and we're looking for 0.51. The one-story addition is for a half bath on the first floor and a closet when you come in on the front entrance.
Okay, if staff could pull up. Okay, if you want to run us through, Jim.
So as you come in the entryway on the left-hand side, the walk-in closet, and then the powder room on the left, which is connected. We bump out 5 feet and go, it's 19.58 feet long. Coming in a foot from the corner and bumping out a foot from the existing house. Existing side setbacks on the left of the house are 14.7, and we would reduce that to 13.6. We're still within the 7.5 or the sum of 20 on both sides. On the Miller Street side, we're at 10.14. So if you, I guess, calculating both of them together, we're at over 23 feet combined after the addition would be done, if granted. And it's a one-story addition. There used to be some windows on that side of the house that got closed up. And we're looking to keep the existing locations. The small bump out that's facing Orchard Street from the dining room has a small window too, which we would relocate to the front of the walk-in closet, and just keeping with the architectural integrity of the house and the neighborhood as best we can to make it blend in as much as possible.
So that new window faces Orchard Street.
Yeah, there's a small one facing Orchard Street, and existing right now, there's that window that's facing Orchard Street is also facing Orchard Street, just set back in the dining room bump out.
Okay.
And then two windows facing the neighbor side.
I'm sorry, there's a, all right, okay. But it's not within the side yard setback anyhow, so, okay.
No.
Yeah, all right. All right, anything else to add? If we could just see the elevation. Probably the,
I think it was, might have been page 2 was the elevation.
okay. And the front of the picture of the house up one slide if we could. And so it goes on the left side there with that window that has been blanked up.
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions by members of the board? Okay, hearing none, let me open it to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the button that says participants, and then click the button that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. We appear to have nobody calling in. There are some letters in the file. There was a letter of correspondence from Sharon Levy, Levy, to Maria Pacheco. This note is in support of the zoning variance requested by Lauren Stewart at 63 Orchard Street. I own the house next door. At 65, I have no questions or concern about the request and believe it would be a wonderful addition to the house. There was correspondence from Hugh White at 8 Miller Avenue. This is in relation to the zoning board meeting. We fully support the addition project at 63 Orchard. There was correspondence from Deborah Fox, Fox. I am a homeowner at 35 Blake. I have no objection to the zoning relief requested. Deborah Fox. And that is the sum substance of the correspondence. I will close the public comment and public input part of the hearing. Any questions by members of the board at all, or a motion?
Ready for a motion.
Okay. It appears that this is being very tastefully done. It's a lovely house and should act. Okay, the board finds that a little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would involve a substantial hardship to the petitioner because it would preclude the petitioner from providing a half bathroom, toilet room in the first floor of the house, which is very much needed and desirable in today's current standards. And that the location of the proposed will fit in very nicely with the existing house in location and also in style. The hardship is owing to the fact that it's an existing structure, predates the existing ordinance, and is encumbered by the ordinance. That the relief of 0.01 floor area ratio is quite de minimis and is fair and reasonable request by the petitioner. The board finds that desirable relief may be granted without substantially derogating from the public good. and that architecturally, the addition will blend in with the house and the neighborhood, creating a seamless design. The board finds that desirable relief may be granted without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the ordinance. On the motion to grant the relief requested, that the work comply with the drawings as submitted, entitled Proposed Addition and Renovation, 63 Orchard Street, and dated 1/04/21, and initialed by the chair with the supporting dimensional forms attached. Jim.
Jim Monteverdi voting in favor of the variance.
Jason.
It's Marshall, yes.
Bettina Williams, yes to the variance.
Slater.
Peter Anderson, yes to the variance.
And Brendan Sullivan, yes, on the affirmative vote of 5 members of the board, the variance is granted. Good luck.
Thank you.
The board will now hear case number 110457, 152 Charles Street.
Good evening. I'm Jordan Smith with Sullivan and Worcester, here with my colleague Jen Schultz, as well as the development team, Ryan and Matt, and the architect Phil. We are here to talk about an addition to a pre-existing non-conforming two-family structure at 152 Charles Street, and going through what is required in terms of our addition. We are putting everything in this addition is going to be dimensionally conforming. And so there are existing non-conforming aspects of the current structure have to do with the front, side, and rear setbacks, as well as the FAR. And in the pursuant to the zoning provisions, any alterations or expansions of a pre-existing non-conforming structure require a finding of the change not being substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Even though state law, MGL chapter 48, section 6, and Belalta nevertheless discuss that these are allowed as of right to be just as cautious and by the book with the Cambridge zoning ordinance as possible. We are here to make the case that this is actually an improvement to the existing structure. What we'll be doing as planned, and Phil will walk through in a moment, is removing an accessory 5-car garage that causes a number of non-conforming aspects on the site, including the rear setback and side setbacks and open space, and providing for an addition to the back of the existing two-family structure. The new structure so the existing structure will then be 1 unit, and the alteration and the addition will be as well 1 unit. And by doing this with the completely conforming addition to the structure, we'll be reducing non-conformities on the site just down to 2 conditions: the front yard setback for the existing front of the house, and the left side yard setback as well, which is from the existing house. In terms of the improvements to the neighborhood, it will be to create open space. There's currently no open space on the site, given that it's all covered with driveway and the 5-car garage, and removing a number of these nonconformities and providing for a more conforming structure to the site. So with that, I'll pass it on to Phil, who can walk through a bit more of the design.
Thanks, Jordan. I'm just, I'm being told to host disabled participant screen sharing. I'm not sure if I have that ability.
Well, it's, I believe it's up, on the screen, and so maybe Cynthia can move through the slides for you.
Sure. Yeah, so as Jordan said, we're basically removing the 5-car garage that is in the back. And if you click on slide number 2, you can kind of see the existing conditions. So it's a masonry structure in the rear and a structure that's kind of in disrepair now. with existing windows that weren't really in line with the original historic nature of the property. So you can kind of just go maybe to slide 5 on that. That really shows what we're doing in terms of the overall massing and zoning. So we're keeping the existing building, digging down into the basement, and then having 2 finished floors above that. As Jordan mentioned, all the addition is compliant. You can see the kind of lighter region in the rear. That's the addition, so it's within the setbacks. And then now we're providing for the space the kind of adequate green space in terms of private green space and shared open space, and 2 surface level parking spots that are also compliant with all kind of dimensional requirements with Cambridge parking. If you go down to page 8, that just kind of briefly gets into the plan. So we're adding a finished basement area on the addition side and on the original side. The ground story is basically all your kind of kitchen, living, and dining. And we worked with the Historical Commission as well as the abutters throughout this process to kind of change the location of the entrance to the second unit in terms of privacy and just kind of flow. So now that's kind of coming in closer to the rear, but we think it's a good fit. And maybe if we go to page 9, that just shows the second floor is really where all the kind of bedrooms are, master bedrooms and normal bedrooms. And then we had started on the addition with a roof deck. We kind of pulled that back with input from historic, and we're maintaining a roof deck on the addition. And we've kind of lowered the roof and worked with the abutters on both sides to make sure that, you know, there are no encroaching shadows and kind of not conflicts with privacy. And we're kind of still finalizing that, but we think we've come to a really nice solution. Page 10 has some of the elevations showing that we're kind of restoring this existing building to its historic nature. Right now, there are kind of holes for air conditioning units that we're removing all that. And then you can see the kind of the addition in the back, which is going to be kind of modified and lowered for the proposed plan. And then page 11 shows, again, we're removing some windows that are on the existing building, which is on the left side, just because they're on the property line, which wouldn't be allowed by code now to have those windows. And it also really helps with the privacy with the abutters. And then minimizing all the windows on the addition, which is on the right side, just we're kind of making them smaller and higher on that ground floor to, again, allow for more privacy between the neighbors. And then the final image is that elevation, basically showing that we've kind of tried to pattern or match the fenestration rhythm between the addition and the original building. That was with the input from historic, and we think it was a really nice outcome. And I think that's the kind of overview that I have, and I'm happy to kind of open it up to input from others or questions.
I did want to note that we did make some changes to the roof line of the roof deck area that we had submitted on Monday that were as a result of discussions with the neighbors, which I don't think is being presented here. So I just wanted to make a note that the roof line the floor was lowered by 1 foot on the first floor, which lowered the overall height of the building. And the picture that you're looking at here, the roof deck was kind of shaved down on after the head house portion to lower the shadow, lower the effective roof height and diminish shadows. So I just want to make sure that was noted that we had submitted updated plans on Monday, and that those were slightly different than what's being shown here, but only on the roof part.
Okay, thank you. Any questions by members of the board?
No questions, thank you.
None? And I have no questions. Let me open it to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the button that says participants and then click the button that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute, or mute by pressing *6, and you will have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Liz Barbosa.
Hello, everyone. Hope everybody's having a nice evening.
Thank you.
My name is Liz Barbosa. My dad, Louis Barbosa, is the owner of 158, 160 Charles Street. We've been in constant communication with Ryan. And the one concern we have, it was kind of a late concern. It was a Wednesday night where we had a meeting, was one of the windows that's facing our side, the last window on the left, which is in the bedroom. My parents had a concern of privacy. It's kind of right, our yard is open, it's kind of facing into that. So we were just requesting, and I spoke to Ryan about this, and he knows either have it eliminated or kind of something higher rectangle, obviously for light purposes. The other two windows, the ones on the right and then the middle, one is in a stairway and one is in a hallway. So we weren't too concerned about privacy in that regards, because, you know, you're not really kind of hanging out versus you're really spending so much time in the bedroom. We're asking for a consideration with this. Otherwise, we completely approve of that project. And we've been in great communication with one of the owners, Ryan. So I'm just hoping you take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to comment?
Yes. Adriana Esposito.
Yes, good evening. This is Adriana Esposito. We also have been in communication with Ryan, and well, anyways, my husband was a little bit concerned that when the new building is being put up, we have two garages next to the existing garages that they're gonna knock down. We were wondering if we could eventually build on top of it, since the new owners are gonna build on the side. So that was a little bit of a concern of ours. Everything else, I did speak with Ryan, and he has promised that the snow removal is going to be taken care of. The noises are going to. Yes?
30 seconds left.
That's the concern. The main concern is the if we can build eventually on our side.
Well, we can't answer that question for you. You'd have to come down with a plan and run it by the building department. That's not we can't give you an answer tonight on that.
No, because if we do need an okay. I mean, we don't want to come 2 years from now and then we are going to be told that we cannot build on top of our garages because of the new construction.
Again, we would need a plan. That's not, and we can't give you a definitive answer on that question tonight, whether or not you can or cannot build on top of the garage.
But just to let you know that this was our concern.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charles Hines.
Hi, it's Charles Hines again, President of the East Cambridge Planning Team. I live at 207.5 Charles Street, East Cambridge. I'm here to speak in support of granting a special permit for 152 Charles Street. The applicants came down to the ECPT on March 24th, and we thought this was a great project. It's going to save and restore a 1854 single family that was originally, create another unit, and we just think it's a great project. They've worked hard on this with the Cambridge Historical Commission. We also wrote a letter of support to the CHC and recommended granted a certificate of appropriateness for the project. And we would just like to see this project happen. We think it's going to be an asset to the neighborhood.
Thank you for calling in.
That's it.
That's the end of the people calling in. There was correspondence from the historical. Cambridge Historical Commission hereby certifies pursuant to Mass Historical District Act and the Cambridge Historical Buildings and Landmark Ordinance that the work described below is not incongruous to the historical aspect or architectural character of the building or the district, to renovate the existing two-family house on a single-family house, demolish the existing high-bay garage at the rear of the lot, and construct an attached single-family townhouse in the rear of the lot. Work is to be carried out as indicated on the plans by Balance Architects, Title 152 Charles Street, and dated March 20, 2021. Approval was granted on the following conditions: that the window pattern on the historic front house be 2/2 double hung sash, that the construction details, including the cladding and trim of the front unit, be delegated to the staff for review and approval, that the final height and width of the stair of the rear unit be delegated to the staff for review and approval. And the approved plans and specifications are incorporated by reference into this certificate. The date of certificate is April 13. If their case is number 4486, and the date of the certificate is April 13, 2021, and by Susanna Tobin. Additionally, noting that there was a new set of drawings and that the historical had referenced a previous drawing, I checked today with Sarah Burks as to whether or not they had seen the latest submittal. There was a correspondence in the file dated May 27 at 2:57. Dear Maria, I just got off the phone with Brendan Sullivan. He was checking to make sure historical had seen the latest set of plans for case number 110457 RE 152 Charles Street. The applicant did check with us before submitting the revised set for his zoning hearing. The changes have been approved by the historical staff and do not need to go back to the historical commission. So that answers my query on their approval. So they have approved the latest set of drawings. And that is the substance of correspondence, and I close public comment portion. Anything else to add, Ryan or Jordan or anybody?
No, I think.
No. Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
Any questions by members of the board?
No questions.
Ready for a motion?
Yes. Ready.
This is a request for a special permit to remove 5-car garage and construct a conforming addition to an existing non-conforming two-family residence. The board finds that the requirements of the ordinance cannot be met unless we grant the special permit. The board notes that Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, does grant unique protection to existing non-conforming 1- and 2-family structures, provided that any alteration does not increase the non-conforming nature of the existing structure. The proposed addition to 152 Charles does not increase the non-conforming nature of the structure, reduces the non-conforming nature of the property, and is not more detrimental to the neighborhood, and therefore only requires a finding that the proposed addition is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure. The board also finds that traffic generated or patterns of access or egress would not cause congestion, hazard, or substantial change in the established neighborhood character. The board finds that the proposed development will not alter access or egress because the existing curb cut will not change. No increase in congestion hazard will be created by the addition because of the number of dwelling units remain the same. The board finds that continued operation of or development of adjacent uses as permitted in the zoning ordinance would not be adversely affected by the nature of the proposed use for the following reasons. The driveway curb will remain. Existing traffic patterns will also remain the same. The proposed parking spaces reduced from 5 to 2 will remain in the same general location as the existing parking spaces. The proposed addition will conform to the dimensional requirements of the property will be increased. The board finds that there will not be any nuisance or hazard created to the detriment of the health, safety, and/or welfare of the occupants of the proposed use or to the citizens of the city. Also notes the approval from the East Cambridge Planning Team and also the Cambridge Historical Commission. Is to be granted, provided it is in compliance with the drawings as submitted, which are dated May 2021, submitted on May 24, and initialed by the chair with also the supporting dimensional form. On the motion then to grant the special permit, Jim Monteverdi.
Jim Monteverdi in favor of the special permit.
Jason.
Jason Marshall, yes, in favor of the special permit. Mr. Chair, I just want to note that I agree with Attorney Smith's view that MGL Chapter 40A, Section 6, and the Belalta case would allow this particular project to proceed as of right, but I do vote yes to the special permit. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Martina.
Martina Williams, yes to the special permit.
And Slater.
Senator Anderson, yes to the special permit.
And Brendan Sullivan, yes, making 5 affirmative votes to grant the special permit. Good luck.
Thank you all.
The board will now hear case number 116860, 101 Antrim Street.
Good evening. Malvina Lampieri, architect, representing Judith Ryan and Cara Prisso, owners of 101 Antrim Street. Thank you for your time this evening. We are seeking a special permit for to extend an existing 3rd floor dormer for purposes of bringing an existing stairwell up to code and to provide headroom in a proposed bathroom on the 3rd floor. Are there drawings available? Okay. So just to run through these quickly, photographs of the one of Antrim Street and then the view from Fayette Street. Next slide. The proposed stairwell where we need relief for the headroom and the section of the dormer from the deck. Next slide, please. Pre-existing non-conforming site.
Can you stop her for a question?
Sorry?
Yes.
Yes.
Stop for a question.
Yes. Mr. Monteverdi has a question.
It's Jim Monteverdi. Before you get too far into your presentation, the question I want to ask you is on our agenda, and the question is really is if the public notice is the same as the agenda. It says that the relief is requested to extend a non-conforming 3rd floor dormer to bring the existing stairwell up to code.
Yes.
I think what you presented in the beginning is actually correct, but my question is that the way it's advertised? In other words, you really are extending the dormer for the bathroom and the stair.
Yes.
And I'm just asking if that's material.
So would, I guess I'm confused by the question. Is the question to me, is that material?
Oh, no, to the board, to the chair.
Yes.
In other words, is it complete? Is that what you're basically saying, Jim?
Yeah, correct. If it's misadvertised, it doesn't say that it's
Yeah, I mean,
being requested.
I suppose it could have said to bring the existing stairwell up to code and
bathroom, just as you presented.
Additional bathroom or something, but I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I think that the structure is the structure. If anybody had any problem with the appearance of the structure or any adverse effect it might have on an adjoining property, that what's underneath the structure, to me, somewhat immaterial, I guess, whether it be a stairway and bathroom, stairway only, combination of both or whatever.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
That's all right. Next slide, please. So on the left is the existing plan with the 5'4" existing dormer and then the extension of the dormer to provide the headroom in the bathroom and the stairwell with an additional 25 square feet. And then the last slide, which are the elevations existing on the left and on the right, the proposed, which really was about balancing that dormer in that roof structure. That's also part of the width on it. And it did receive a ringing endorsement from the Mid-Cambridge Conservation Commission. So, and there's a couple of letters of support that we submitted as well.
Great, thank you. Any questions by members of the board?
No further questions, no.
May open it to public comment. The board, any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the button that says participants and then click the button that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6, and you will have up to 3 minutes to speak. There was nobody calling in. There is correspondence from the Mid-Cambridge Neighborhood Conservation District regarding 101 Antrim Street. The Mid-Cambridge Neighborhood Conservation District hereby certifies pursuant to Title II, Chapter 2.78, Article 3, Section 2.78, 140-270 of the Code of the City of Cambridge and the City Council order establishing a commission that the construction described below is not incongruous to the historic aspect or architectural character of the building or district. That is to extend the existing dormer. The plans and specifications that were submitted are incorporated into the certificate, which is non-binding on the applicant. Their case number MC 6148 and the date of the certificate is April 5, 2021. There's also correspondence from Dorian Gale, I guess. Is that correct? There was some correspondence back and forth about the nature of the dormer, and the owners have clarified that, and as such, the correspondence has been favorable to their request. There were some pictures in the file explaining the nature of it and showing one of the neighbors. Is it from Judy Ryan and Cara Perso? Malvina, could you explain the correspondence and the sort of a back and forth here between the applicant and the neighbor?
Yes, the owners approached their neighbors to explain what the nature of the project was. And all those, when you get to the heart of that correspondence, they're all in support.
Okay, and that was to Dorian, is that right?
Yes.
Dorian Heinrich, okay. And that is a substance of communications, and I will close public comment part and public submittal. Anything else to add?
Not on my part, thank you, and sorry for the slight confusion.
Great, thank you. Comments by the board or a motion?
Ready for a motion.
Let me make a motion to grant a special permit to extend the pre-existing non-conforming, well, the proposal of an alteration to a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The relief is requested to extend a non-conforming third-floor dormer to bring the existing stairwell up to code and also to enlarge the bathroom. The board finds that the requirements of the ordinance cannot be met without the granting of a special permit. The proposed dormer extension at 101 Antrim Street increases the non-conforming nature of the residence in very minor ways. The proposed changes will not be more substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. The board finds that traffic generated or patterns of access or egress would not cause congestion, hazard, or substantial change in the established neighborhood character. The extended dormer will not cause any additional traffic. The continued operation of or development of adjacent uses as permitted in the zoning ordinance would not be adversely affected by the nature of the proposed use. and there will not be any nuisance or hazard created to the detriment of the health, safety, and/or welfare of the occupants of the proposed use or to the citizens of the city. In fact, the health and safety of the occupants of the to the occupants of the proposed structure will be increased. That the proposed use and the application before us will not impair the integrity of the district or adjoining districts or derogate from the intent and purpose of the ordinance. The board notes the letter of certificate of appropriateness from the Mid-Cambridge Neighborhood Conservation District Commission and letters of support. Granting of the special permit is contingent upon the drawings and the dimensional form contained therein, initialed by the chair. Jim Monteverde.
Jim Monteverde votes in favor of the special permit.
Martina.
Martina Williams in favor of the special permit.
Jason.
Jason Marshall, yes, in favor of the special permit.
Slater.
Slater Anderson, yes, in favor of the special
And
permit.
Brendan Sullivan, yes. On the affirmative vote of 5 members, the special permit is granted. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
The board will hear case number 116810, 68 Middlesex Street. Mr. Glassman, if you will introduce yourself, and then I would like to make a statement.
Adam Glassman, 2 Worthington Street, Cambridge, Mass. GCD Architects.
Okay, this is Brendan Sullivan. Just for the record, Mr. Glassman has prepared a set of drawings for a lady some time ago. That lady then contacted my son a short time ago and asked my son if he'd be interested in doing renovation. And I will be assisting my son. We have pulled the permit, has been granted by the city, and I will be assisting my son in that project. At no time have I discussed this project with Mr. Glassman, nor has my son, and nor have we had any communications with Mr. Glassman directly or indirectly through the client. We happen to have mutual clients, but have not had any direct contact with each other. And I don't think we probably will, because it's pretty the customer is purchasing the kitchen cabinets, has purchased the windows, and I don't even know if Mr. Glass will have any more input. But anyhow, I just wanted to disclose that to the board and to the general public. If anybody has any problem or feels that I should recuse myself from hearing this case, I will gladly do. So I ask members of the board if anybody, Jim, any?
Nope, I'm fine with it.
Jason?
Mr. Chair, I'm hearing from your remarks that your arrangement will not prejudice your decision in this matter. No issue here.
No, it would not at all. No, it never has, never will. No, it will not. Slater, any concerns, questions?
No concerns. Thank you for asking.
Martina?
No concerns.
Okay. And Mr. Glassman, any concerns on your part for me hearing this case?
No.
Or the petitioner?
No.
Okay, good. All right, proceed.
Okay. Is Cynthia sharing the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm here representing Joe Ronchetti, who lives with his family at 60 Middlesex. In the existing street view, this is the cedar shingle house on the left. And he takes meticulous care of his house and his property. And he's undergone renovations to the main structure over the years, and now he's turning his attention to an existing, very old single-car garage. It's concrete structure, circa 1920s, 1930s. It's no longer functional to use as a garage. It's suffering various structural and envelope deficiencies. And we are here to seek relief to remove this existing accessory structure and the adjacent shed behind it, and which total 355 gross square feet. Replace it with a 377 gross square foot single car garage, and we're seeking relief to basically reconfigure this and rebuild it within 5 feet of the right side lot line, and relief is required for Article 4. You can see the existing garage from various views here. On the left side, there's actually quite a large yard that we'll be maintaining, and it's kind of cool. His neighbors use this. He lets his neighbors use this as sort of a de facto community garden. And the enlarged garage will have no impact on this. Next page. So you can see we're moving from the middle plan. You see the existing garage removed, the shed behind it. It's very long, it's very narrow, and we'd like to change the dimensions of the rectangle so we can accommodate a car and space to get in and out. More in a way we can't do now. On the left side, you can see we'll be maintaining all our green space and our open space. We will be moving the garage slightly towards the left, away from the right side lot line. It's essentially 8 inches off the lot line now. Slight increase to 14 inches, enough to continue the existing landscape bed on the right side of the driveway, continue it all the way back. The driveway, you can see in the existing plan, has a bit of a curve in the upper left. We'll be squaring that off. In this way, we can still drive right in from the street into the garage. If we moved the garage any further to the left, we'd compromise the garden, and then we'd start passing the house, which would make access very difficult. Next page. Just shows the existing garage. It's about 9.5 feet clear on the inside. The existing shed does not function as a garage in any way. 11-foot tall structure, about 11 feet wide, 8 feet high. Next page. More of the same, just the left side view that faces the garden now. Next page. The back side, which sits the right side, which is 8.5 inches off the lot line. And you can see here on the right, we are currently 2 feet 1 inch from the rear lot line. We'll actually be bringing that nonconformity into conformity by creating a 5-foot setback between the back of the proposed garage and the rear lot line. Next page. The proposed plan, the dashed line on the inside shows the standard parking space per the zoning code, the size, the dimensions of a parking space. We have enough room to get around the car to make this a functional garage. And we're only adding 20 square feet overall to the entire structure. 20-foot increase from what is there now. Technically, it's actually a drop in FAR. I don't know if that's really important, but technically it's true. Next slide. This is the new front of the garage, something that's visually consistent with the existing structure, more compatible visually with the rest of the neighborhood. We're proposing cedar shingles. It's a very minimal, low profile kind of structure, 15 feet tall, which is allowable per the zoning code. Next page. The side that faces the garden, we have an opportunity to do something a little bit more creative, provide a kind of a nicer, more pleasant backdrop for the yard, the garden, the people who use the garden space. A small dormer on the top with some transom windows to get some more light into the garage. Next slide. This is the rear, 5 foot off the rear lot line, no openings other than a vent. Next slide. The right side would be a blank wall facing the neighbor. Next slide. A couple of 3D visuals of what we'd be proposing, something we try to make attractive and tasteful, consistent with the neighborhood. Next slide. Just the site plan that shows what we have now to be removed. And that is our presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions by members of the board? Jim?
No questions, thank you.
Jason,
Jason Marshall, no questions.
Martina,
Martina Williams, no questions.
Slater,
Later, no questions.
and I have no questions. I'll open it up to public comment. Any members of the public who wish to speak should now click the button that says participants and then click the button that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6, and you'll have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Jennifer Goodman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, this is Jennifer K. Goodman. I am the neighbor. My property butts on two sides because the Marchetti property cuts into our property. We actually really prefer not to have a setback because the garage will be our property line, and having the 5-foot setback gives a weird space that it's right now the garage actually forms part of a fenced property line for us, and we prefer that. The other is we have an outdoor patio that we spend a majority of our time in the spring and summer, and the garage gives us tons of privacy. If the garage is removed, then everyone walking down Middlesex can see straight into our patio area, and we love that the garage gives us privacy there. We actually don't care if there's a 5-foot abutment on either side, and we're very much in favor of it being redone because the current garage is old and sort of tattered, and it doesn't look as good as it could, and a brand new garage there really forms sort of a wall of our outdoor patio and adds sort of a really cool neighborhood feel to it. So we highly support the project. And like I said, don't care about the setback on either side, because the more area there's for the garden, we're happy to have more green space.
Okay, thank you.
Nobody else?
Nobody else?
No.
And nobody else calling in. There is correspondence. There are 2 letters, actually. Jennifer, who just spoke, and also a correspondence from Jeffrey Howard. My wife and I live next door to Mr. Ronchetti at 90 Middlesex Street, and we want you and all members of the Board of Appeal to know that we have no objection to Mr. Ronchetti's plan to demolish the existing garage and rebuild a much more useful structure for his family. I see it as an improvement to the neighborhood, both in utility and aesthetics. I've known Mr. Ronchetti for several decades, and I know him to be a very good neighbor who is responsible, practical, and always wants to complete things correctly. We are in full support and urge you to approve this project. Thank you, Jeffrey and Lucille Howard, 90 Middlesex Street. And that is the substance of the correspondence. So I will close public comment portion. Any questions? Mr. Glassman, any other parting comments or?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Comments by the board or ready for a motion? Jim?
Ready for a motion.
Nobody else has questions? Let me make a motion then to grant the variance for the removal of the existing and reconstruction of an accessory garage structure. The board finds that a little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would involve. The petitioner owns a 1920s era single car concrete block garage, which has fallen into, because of its age, disrepair and has become obsolete. A little enforcement would prevent the owner from removing the existing garage structure and building a new, modest, single-car replacement garage, which is far more functional for parking a modern-sized vehicle and would improve the aesthetic fit for the community. The hardship is owing to the fact that the existing structure, the location on the lot predates the existing ordinance, and as such, the current property is encumbered by the new ordinance and would prohibit the taking down and building of a compliant garage, functional garage, without some relief from this board. The board finds that substantial detriment to the that there would not be any substantial detriment to the public good, and that the garage will not create any new noise pollution abutting properties or eliminate any off-street parking or privacy for abutters. The board notes the 2 letters in support from the abutters who are very much in favor of this proposal and the value that it will bring to the neighborhood. Board finds that relief may be granted without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the ordinance. The proposed garage will bring several existing zoning nonconformities into compliance. These are the proposed 5-foot rear setback and the 10-foot minimum separation to the main house required for accessory garage structures. The right side setback for the accessory structure will remain non-conforming, but will be improved. Because the work includes the removal of an existing garden shed, the existing non-conforming FAR will actually be reduced from 0.58 to 0.55. And as an added benefit, Mr. Ronchetti allows several neighbors to use his backyard as a community garden, which will both be preserved and enhanced. And this structure will enhance the use of that garden and the aesthetics to the neighborhood. All those in favor of, and as a requirement that the work comply with the drawings submitted and the dimensional form included, prepared by GCD Architects and dated 15 April 2021 and initialed by the chair. Jim Monteverdi.
Jim Monteverdi in favor of the variance.
Jason Marshall, yes, in favor of the variance.
Martina.
Martina Williams, yes, in favor of the variance.
Slater.
Slater Anderson in favor of the variance.
And Brendan Sullivan, yes, in favor. 5 affirmative votes to granting of the variance. Good luck. Okay, the board will hear case number 117050, 57 Pleasant Street. Is it 8:15 yet?
Yes, sir.
Is it 8:15?
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Just barely?
No. Not by too much, but you know.
Have to
We're well
talk-
past the 8:15.
Talk faster?
No, you're doing fine.
Okay, Mr. Buck?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Sullivan.
Attorney Walter Sullivan on behalf of 57 Pleasant Street LLC. We are seeking a special permit to reconstruct a roof that collapsed, to reconstruct the badly deteriorated rear portion of the building and increase the height of that roof, a flat roof that it is, by 12 inches so it meets state code. And hang to the front door. The board may recall that we were before the board back at the end of last year and the beginning of the year in order to add windows to an existing non-conforming wall on the left side of the building as well as the rear, and to increase the volume by 12%. We removed the volume of 12%, went down to 10, so we no longer needed a special permit. Included in our drawings, which the board approved, included a overhang. However, when we went to apply for the special permit, the building permit, I apologize. The building department would not let us do it because it wasn't listed in the special permit application or on the decision. So we're before the board. I believe you have pictures of the condition of the building, showing how bad it was, and where we are now. The pitch of the roof will not change, nor the height of the roof will change. If the board wishes, Mr. Buck will walk you through the designs and explain to you what happened.
Perhaps briefly.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So we appeared before the before the board for the special permit for the window relocations, and that was approved as.
You just give your address, Mr. Buck.
The address of the property is 57 Pleasant Street.
No, your address.
My personal address is 24 Mayflower Road, Winchester, Mass.
Okay. Good.
So we proceeded building the approved project, and part of the project was some pretty significant roof alterations. There was a dormer being added to the left side as well as the right side. Just spitballing, it was about 75% of the roof being affected under the approved plan. As you can see in some of the pictures, the existing framing wasn't exactly up to code or in good shape. There was some significant deterioration from insects, water, just years and years and years of being there. When we went to tie into the roof with the new dormers, the roof collapsed. We cleaned it up, we made it safe, and we received notice from the building department that we had to stop work due to the fact that they were now calling it a demolition. We've had some go back and forth with the building department regarding whether it was a demolition or a collapse, and they suggested we come for a special permit to move forward and put it before your board. There wasn't really much we could have done differently. We tried to preserve what was there. It just was not possible given the amount of alterations that were happening. So we're looking to rebuild the roof that was there to the same specifications that was approved previously by this board.
Okay, and they told you to come down here to get a special permit. And the reason for that is because it is a single family, or is it a two?
It was a two.
It is a
we're
single
changing it to
family.
a single.
It's a single.
It's a single.
Right. I'm just trying to see where the violations are specifically.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, Walter, yeah.
I somewhat agree with you that the work we're looking to do is within the is conforming. However, the building commissioner felt it was much safer just to go and get a special permit in case any issues arose. We're constructing, it collapsed. We're constructing the roof exactly what was presented to the board. The issue that really is before the board is probably the 12 inches in the back, because that abuts, that is close to the property line. You allowed us to put windows in the back, but as a result of how deteriorated it is, we have to do a lot more work than we thought we were going to have to do. So by raising it by 12 inches, that allows us to meet state code and make it and make it more of a viable portion of the building. The reason for the front overhang is we thought that was approved by the board. However, just in the plans that you said you approved, the commissioner felt that it'd be much better just to come back and specifically ask for that language.
No.
The original door that was on the other side had an overhang, and we're just putting it back basically the way the door was on the other side of the house when we moved it.
Okay. Let me ask a question. Jason, do you have any opinion on the requested relief by way of special permit on this? Or is this sort of run the vein of what we've been hearing tonight as far as special protection under Section 6?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm still trying to get my grounding on what's before us here. And so I appreciate the question, because that may help anchor it a little bit. It's not clear to me whether or not you're seeking to intensify an existing nonconformance, or are you seeking a variance for a new nonconformance, or are you not? Are you doing neither? In which case, the reference that the chair just made that wouldn't apply. But yeah, I mean, Walter, if you could provide a little more, maybe just crisply, what's before us? I remember this case. I was on this case when it came to us, but I'm going back and looking at the application now. It looks like there's a handwritten page at the end with respect to FAR. Is that what's solely before us or not?
Jason, nothing is changing as to, other than the 12 inches in the back, nothing is really changing as to what you approved back in January. We're constructing the roof, same height, same pitch as was before. It was the building commissioner's recommendation to apply for a special permit, just maybe as a safe harbor. Maybe that would be a better way of putting it, just in case the issue was ever raised.
The 12 inches in the back, I mean, refresh me, is that related to the setback or is that related to?
That's the only question I could see because of the property, because of the setback. That could be the only potential question relative to a special permit. Everything else, I would think we would have been able to do without it, but this is what the building commissioner asked us to do. And we're not allowed to finish working on the building until we get the special permit.
So he was not comfortable just to allow you to do it as of right, basically.
Yes.
And that he felt that section 6, which would be the second exception clause.
Right, and he thought it'd be safer just to go for the special permit.
Okay. Jason, I think both of us are a little not too sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jim, can you opine in on this or?
No, if it's really that small of a, it's really correcting, adding the overhang to a front door, and the 12-inch, raising the roof by 12 inches in the rear, it all seems just kind of tying it all back together again. So I don't have any objection to it. And doing it this way as a special permit, if that's what the commissioner requested.
Okay, Slater, any questions at all?
No, I mean, it seems, they had a collapse situation, nothing intentional, and they're trying to correct that and get back on track with a plan that was approved. So I don't have an issue.
Okay, Martina, any questions, concerns?
No, I think that it's had a collapse and now he needs to get the permit. I understand why the commissioner asked for it this way. So I'm good.
Okay, all right. Let me open it to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the button that says participants and then click the button that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand. Oops.
Can you hear me? I just want to just clarify again. The proposal is to raise the roof by 12 inches in the rear, correct?
Yes, it's the flat roof in the rear.
Does that put you over what you're allowed to do?
I'll let Mr. Buck speak to that. I don't believe it does.
No, we're well, but the flat roof in the rear is well below the allowed height.
All right. It's still the source of my confusion over why you need a special permit for that ask. I don't understand that. I mean, maybe that gives me comfort in approving it because it doesn't seem like you need it. I don't.
Frankly, I don't understand either, but we're just trying to follow the rules and go through the right channels.
Yeah. All right.
I think I understand. Sissy is saying because it's an alteration within the setback.
Right.
Okay. Yep. I don't have a problem. Thank you.
Okay.
That's very helpful.
Let me open it to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the button that says participants and then click the button that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6, and you'll have up to 3 minutes to speak. There was correspondence. There was nobody calling in. There was correspondence. We, as the closest and most immediate neighbor impacted by the proposed reconfigured window layout directly adjacent to us, as well as facing our property, fully support the proposed changes to the home at 57 Pleasant Street, Cambridge. We are excited for construction to begin on the home, which has fallen into severe disrepair over the years. we have reviewed proposed plans and hold the opinion that the reconstruction of the home will positively affect the neighborhood. Respectfully, Sarah Slater, 59 Pleasant Street. There is correspondence from Shoshana, Shana, Herzig, Herzig, 59 Pleasant Street. We, as the closest and most immediate neighbor impacted by the proposed reconstructed window layout, fully support the proposed changes to the home at 57 Pleasant Street. We have reviewed the proposed plan and hold the opinion that the reconstruction of the home will positively affect the neighborhood. And that is the sum substance of the two correspondence. I will close public comment part, and if there's anything
Mr.
else.
Chair, if I may.
Yep.
You
Yes.
should have received another letter from a Dr. Lloyd Sheldon Johnson on 148 River Street, who is also in favor of the project.
Yeah, it was funny because I was looking for one from him because of his previous comments on it, and it's not in the file.
It was uploaded today and sent to the inspectional services.
Oh, okay, all right, so she may not have included in, but I'll note the record that you have testified that he is in favor.
Yes.
Okay, is there anything else, Walter, to add?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Then the board will discuss among themselves. Any comments, Jim, or?
No.
None, Slater? Any comments?
No
Ready for motion?
comment.
Martina, ready for motion?
Yes.
Jason, ready for?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, all set. Thank you.
Okay. Make a motion to granting the special permit to reconstruct the collapsed roof structure, reconstruct badly deteriorated rear portion of the building and raise the roof by 12 inches and a flat roof, and add the overhang at the front door as per the application and the dimensional form submitted, initial, and the drawing submitted, an initial by the chair. The board finds that the requirements of the ordinance cannot be met without the granting of the special permit. The board finds that traffic generated or patterns of access or egress would not cause congestion, hazard, or substantial change in the established neighborhood character. The board finds that the continued operation of or development of adjacent uses as permitted in the zoning ordinance would not be adversely affected by the nature of the proposed use. There would not be any nuisance or hazard created to the detriment of the health, safety, and/or welfare of the occupant or the proposed use to the citizens of the city, and that the proposed use would not impair the integrity of the district or adjoining district, otherwise derogate from the intent and purpose of the ordinance. The board notes the 3 letters in support of immediate neighbors of this project. The board notes the derelict condition of the building and the attempt to reconstruct it, and the difficulties doing so, and that the granting of this special permit will enhance the appearance of the house and the livability, obviously, for the occupants. On the motion then to grant the special permit, Jim.
Jim Monteverdi in favor of granting the special permit.
Martina.
Martina Williams in favor of granting the special permit.
Slater.
Slater Anderson in favor of granting the special permit.
Jason.
Jason Marshall, yes, in favor of the special permit.
And Brendan Sullivan, yes, in favor. On the affirmative vote of 5 members of the board, the special permit is granted as per the
Mr.
application.
Chair and members, thank you for your time and patience.
Okay, Walter.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes tonight's meeting.
Good job, Mr. Chair. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Take care.
Thank you all.